was like, this is just wrong. And, you know,
So we tried at it first. Thanks for was my sugar and yeah, the cake literally collapsed in on itself. It was
yeah, right, because it's not cake.
So my mother-in-law was like, screw this, and went and got like a and he wouldn't touch it.
I said,
Like
like,
my kid would
Yeah,
like,
he was like,
what is this?
because they're not used to it,
Yeah, no.
right? They never have.
We were
he was
like,
dis-
try it, be
he was
cute.
disgusted by the feeling of the
Like,
ice.
this is like carrot or spinach puree. What do I do with it?
So yeah, it was
That's
a lot of fun.
funny. Aw, gosh.
1 year old.
That is what
Yeah. So is that your guideline?
It'll be harder to corral girls next year.
What are you doing?
I know, but you know what, Tom and I, that's like, you
Yes,
know,
I mean,
we
it
haven't been around
was nice.
babies
You know,
for a long
they
time, so
ended
it's
up,
like anytime they're
indoors
really-
entirely. So the bus was outside, but they set everything up.
But, you know,
I think
live
there
with
may
them
have
all
been
the
rain
time, you're
earlier
like,
today.
oh my gosh.
Oh, I love it, but he's like, he's turning it.
But I mean, the biggest
ways.
came from, it was concurrent with dismissal from the
pulling
Ford
up or
County
is he-
After School.
He's like
So a lot of
standing and
families
he's
were
like
kind of
shuffling
picking their
along
kids
stuff.
up and
He's
popping
like
in the
cruising
gym
on.
and seeing stuff, so.
Yeah, and he's
Yeah,
like
it was
forgotten
really well
that he's
organized.
a
It was really well done. It was great.
Uh,
It's good energy when you have something like that.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
He tried to do things where he like put
There.
his balls in his hands, so you like it's
You do the classic parent thing where you try to get them to walk and then they walk
And they
and you're like,
regret
holy crap.
so. So yeah,
Mm.
we've learned no
Yeah,
lessons
healthy
from
and
anyone
really
else. Yeah, I'm glad he can make it.
Yeah,
So,
he's really excited about it.
yeah, I'll text him and we go closer to it, but.
Yeah, when is that?
29.
Of this month?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, hopefully the weather's good, because they can bring like lawn chairs and stuff. It's on the Bowling Green. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that would be neat to hear.
Are we live?
Yes, we should be, sure. Yes, we are live. We are good to go.
Did you get what you needed?
All right, I'll go ahead and call the October meeting, the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors to order. Nice to see all of you, and thank you for spending your late afternoon evening with us. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair O'Connor.
Here,
Sorry.
we'll take a couple rounds. Yeah.
Arish Gudger. Matt Harris.
Here.
Praveen Kapko. Hillary Orr. Kirsten Phelps.
Here.
Laura Gates.
Here.
Ajaysha Thomas.
Present.
Arthur Wicks.
Here.
Chair Kaplan, you have a quorum. Those absent are Arish Gudger and Praveen Kapko.
I know Arish had emailed, he's going to be joining us virtually, but it'll be a little after 5:30. Let's go ahead and move into public comment. I'm just going to ask if we have any pre-registered speakers. We have a statement that we read, but I'll do that only if we have speakers who are.
We do not.
Okay. So I will then ask if we have anyone in the room who would like to be heard. And we're going to ask on the Zoom, if there's anyone who'd like to be heard, you can indicate so by raising your hand. We'll pause for a minute.
Looks like you're good.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Move on to the chair's report. Just a few items to mention. One is I want to thank everyone for being part of a very productive work session with City Council last month. Our staff worked really hard to put that together and included, I called them flash polls, but what did you call them, Josh? The questions that we, to get everybody's pulse.
Oh,
I think I made up that term. So.
yeah, why can't I think of the name of it? Menti poll. Yeah, the Menti poll. That's right.
Could have been a Kahoot. A great way to ensure that we could get the temperature of everybody. We had a large group between the two bodies, and so a great way to get the temperature of everyone and to provoke further conversation. I think we learned a lot from City Council as to their priorities, and we'll see that informing revisions to the Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan and to our DASH strategic plan. And I know staff is working through a lot of that feedback. I had an opportunity to attend the joint city council school board work session that was held on September 29th. It was the first time I actually had ever attended a meeting of our school board, as I don't have children. Some of you I know live ACPS much more. I know Art was in the room, I think, for the agenda item that followed when I was listening to. I wanted to show support to our staff, many of whom, as I'm looking around the room, were at that meeting, and hoping to see a robust discussion between the two bodies as they evaluated Dash's future in high school transportation. That's not exactly how the meeting turned out, and clearly there are trust and communication issues between the two bodies that go far beyond Dash, and we got unfortunately caught in the middle of some of that. Nonetheless, staff, you are deserving of praise not only for your professionalism during that work session, but also for doing the kind of work this board expects, which is we are experts in providing transportation through the city on buses. And so we look to see where are there efficiencies, where are there shared services that we can be part of. And so you engaged in a long process with city staff at the suggestion of Vice Mayor Bagley and Councilman Newby, who had come forward, I think, with a memo, and had worked a lot with the school staff, and you came up with a good product. You had an excellent presentation, which I'm glad that we were able to see, so the public could better understand what was involved in the proposal and the very modest first step that the pilot would have included. You know, school and city leadership will change over the years and the players, and so I think you've laid terrific groundwork for this proposal when it will inevitably come back. But I encourage you, despite the outcome of this, continue doing what you're doing and looking for ways to add value beyond just the core of what Dash is known for doing, because that earns the respect of our city leaders. And despite the school board not embracing this proposal, I will say they went around the room and each member spoke, and several of them had very nice things to say about Dash. I'm not sure how often they ride, because I think that might have mitigated some of the concerns that they had about the proposal, but nonetheless, you walk away from that, you know that Dash is a well-respected service. And the way we engaged in this is what we as a board want to see. And so I know you've had a lot of time with Josh, and Josh may have additional comments on the outcome and the process, but I just wanted to offer my thanks to all of you. Finally, I wanted to mention, of course, we are in a federal government shutdown right now, and so that affects a lot of people in this community in many different ways. Shutdowns come in waves. Those who are employed have a period of time before they miss paychecks, and those who depend on programs, not every program stops right away, and there's kind of ways to look at other sources of money to temporarily carry on. So depending how long the shutdown goes on, there could be a lot of pain and a lot of angst within this community. I know there's a lot of planning that's been going on at the city and regional level to try to mitigate the impacts of a government shutdown. Dash is a service that is really helpful in helping people navigate something like this, because this is the first time the government is shut down that we are fare free. And so we are an option for people who want to maybe save some money and look at different ways to travel around the city, maybe finding they have more time during the workday and able to run errands or explore parts of the city that they wouldn't normally go to. And so I hope that they'll look to Dash and that we will show up and we will carry people and help them get through this, however long it goes on for. And so really want to say, it's times like that we really consider being fare free as being so helpful to those who are in need and those who maybe didn't even expect to be in need, but are because of what's going on at the federal level. So thank you all for that and for what you do. We are also going to need to look at our November meeting. We could do that at the end, but I think it's probably best we take that up while we're fresh. Josh flagged for me that November 12th, when we would meet, is a city council meeting night because Veterans Day is the day before, so they moved their meeting. I wanted first to ask our city staff whether the fact that the 12th is a city council meeting, is that automatically a conflict for you? Does it depend on what's on? Okay.
It is, at least for me,
Okay.
I know.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to know before we embarked on moving it, if all three of you would be involved in that. And it sounds like at least two of you are going to be at the meeting that night. So the alternative that Josh came forward with is to move to the 13th, the following day. We would be here instead of City Hall because we weren't able to get a room. So if folks are able to check their calendar and that date works, we can go ahead and schedule that. Otherwise, if we need to, we can look at other dates within November and do a poll to determine availability. 13th, so we'd still be 5:30,
I
Matt's
mean,
shaking his head,
don't worry about me, but I can't make the
okay.
No,
So
got my head, but again, if I miss.
you would be a no as
I
well,
don't know.
okay,
I actually can't do the 13th.
okay.
We can also, in the past, we've also moved back a week, so like to the following Wednesday. When we, so
Oh,
one
the
week later
week
on
before.
Wednesday,
November 19th.
Wednesdays are better.
Yeah.
We can-
And to Steph, do we have, and we do have our calendar on here in terms of items we do each month, is there pressing, if we weren't to meet in November, would that affect our process? Do we start looking at the preliminary budget then, or?
We have a lot
Do a lot in
on the
November,
agenda
okay.
in November, budget approvals, submittal approvals, and a number of other items that we need to talk to you all about. So it is ideal to have a November
Okay.
meeting. We could also move it earlier. I mean, we're flexible, so you just tell us what.
So why don't we offer that the prior Wednesday, and then if you could come up with 2 other dates just to include in the poll. I know we want to avoid Thanksgiving week. And we'll go with whatever the largest group can accommodate.
Is it generally the case that people have Wednesdays are a better day for people? So not really matter, it's just.
And
Why don't we just see if that Wednesday
is-
before works?
Transportation
Yeah.
Commission the week after,
After, but for
yeah.
some reason, there was talk of moving that meeting too. For some reason.
We can do a poll and we'll evaluate against the
Before.
city's calendar and anything else that's going
I mean,
on.
can anybody here not do the Wednesday before?
And we're talking about the 5th.
Oh, you can. Yeah, that's right. But
yeah, we'll get some, and I know we have 2, I don't think Arisha's joined us yet, so we have 1 member who has not been able to participate, so the poll will capture everyone.
Okay.
That's
Follow.
that's what I had in terms of chair's report. I'll turn over to Hillary for TDS.
So I just have the link.
Okay, I can pull it up on
Did you
Portal.
send me slides? I'm sorry, I can.
I sent Beth stuff. Here, I can pull it up from Portable. But if you want to, well, let me do my notes first and then we'll do the fun part. So I think David will be interested.
I previewed it.
Okay. Okay, so just to keep you all updated on the Duke Street Transitway project, we've kicked off design with our, we have an excellent design team led by AECom, and we're really excited about the folks that they brought into that project to help us kind of navigate how we're gonna design Duke Street. And we know what the concept is, but there's still a lot of pinch points and things we have to work through. So we did a walkthrough with them and you'll see survey crews out in the field, but we're full speed ahead with that. We also, I put some photos in the packet for some projects that you all had weighed in on or been updated on over the course of last year that were implemented or are soon to be implemented. So Sanger Avenue, we took a lane that was a peak hour travel lane and we added parking all the time so we could put in curb extensions. And then this will also be a path for the West End Transitway. So it's a much safer, slower, calmer street, lots of new crosswalks in that area. So we're excited about that project. It was also one of the locations where we had some of the highest parking citations for residents because of the on and off peak hours for the parking lane. So providing the parking all the time eliminates that issue for them. We implemented a cycle track on Mill Road, which we've gotten some good praise on. And then we have improvements coming to Metro Road right by the Metro, the little road that goes between Eisenhower and Van Dorn by the Van Dorn Metro Station. And then Holland Lane will be repaved and reconstructed with a road diet and bike lanes this fall. We also are in the midst of the Duke Street land use plan. On the 23rd, we'll be talking about housing and mobility. So we've spent a lot of time talking about mobility on Duke Street already. We're not rehashing that and starting from scratch. We have a transitway that is being constructed, but still traffic is a concern. So we'll be talking to the community about that in October. And then Josh, if you want to pull up the dashboard. So we've been doing a lot of inventorying of our bus stops with Dash staff as well. And Silas Sullivan who's on his honeymoon, pulled together this dashboard for us that is now public. People can go, you can look at routes. We have stops with lighting, live displays, trash cans, shelter, and ADA compliant. So obviously our goal is 100% compliance, but it's a nice dashboard to play around with if you want to know what's happening at each of the bus stops. I think we talked about with staff trying to figure out if there's maybe a way to pull in some kind of metrics on ridership for each of the stops, but yeah, please go to the link and dive in. And
I have a question about the dashboard. I mean, it looks like a lot of work goes into pulling all the data together. How are you operationalizing, keeping that up to date?
So we have all of this information in a smart sheet. And so whenever we are installing improvements, our team is just updating that. And then it's probably monthly, it automatically updates the dashboard.
Okay.
But we keep track of that internally.
So whenever a change is made,
Yeah.
that change goes into
The
data.
inventory of the existing conditions was the hardest part. So now once we have that, we can much more easily keep it up to date.
I want to thank you for the dashboard. How does one get to it from the city's website? Is it on?
We haven't posted it yet.
Oh, okay.
I think the link might be in your packet, but we're going to put it on our bus stops
Oh,
webpage.
okay. And I want to second the Mill Road improvements. I used it for the first time this past weekend. I didn't know how much I needed that. I mean, it was so great to not be on very busy and then narrow sections of Eisenhower Avenue and a bicycle. So just to be able to cut over from Jameson was a really nice and very safe ride. So thank you for doing that.
Fun seeing these projects come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did have a question just to follow up on something we've been talking about in the spring. There were some Transportation Commission ordinance changes coming related to membership that would have enabled us to appoint someone outside this board to, is that still pending with council? We hadn't talked about it since the spring, I mean, so
Council might, do you know if they approved that already?
I'm not sure.
I will look into when that might have already gone through. Let me look into it, because I know they're having conversations with the Transportation Commission also, because there were other changes along with that as well. I will get back to you on that, but it might have already gotten approved.
okay. I'll wait to hear, and then I'll engage with our DAC chair about their involvement in potential selecting a member. Any other questions for Councilor? All right. We set aside time each month for other members who serve on boards, commissions, and organizations within the city, and anything you want to bring forward for the benefit of the group.
Yes, just two things. One, on your comments about the federal shutdown, just I'll put the plug out there. alexandriava.gov/federal shutdown is a compendium of all the resources available to residents to help out during this time. So just putting that in another public space. And then just for other reports, since we've last met about 3 weeks ago, the mayor, manager, myself, and Kevin Greenleaf, the current finance director, and Stephanie Landrum from Economic Development went up to New York and did our bond rating hearings with Moody's and S&P. And we reaffirmed our AAA bond rating for the city for our 33rd or 34th consecutive year. And I just bring that up because that's a step in our budget process and how it impacts, Dash. There are a couple of capital projects where either city match will eventually come from long-term borrowing, or the program that maintains this facility has a large amount of borrowing. So us getting a good rating helps us get a better interest rate when we borrow, and it helps support projects and support Dash. But the other reason I want to bring it up is in the rating agency's kind of review of our status, they talked a lot about our budgeting practices and our ability to do long-term forecasting and have hard discussions about trade-offs and prioritizations, which Dash and this board has been a part of. So, the hard work we do here helps that, which helps give us access to capital to do projects. So good thing, good accomplishment. But that's happened over the last month. I think we're set to close sometime between now and the end of the month on our issuance, and AAAs are getting an interest rate somewhere between like 3.5% and 4% now, which is relatively inexpensive for borrowing. So good news and more good news to come.
Thank you for having.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Jesse?
I don't think it's elsewhere on the agenda, but I just wanted to say I had the chance to attend the ridership celebration event that you all coordinated. I thought it was a phenomenal event. I really, I know a lot of work went into rounding up that many city agencies to participate, but I thought it was very cool to see 10 different City of Alexandria and other social service nonprofits sort of, being able to engage with people that also use public transit. And there was a ton of families there were a ton of kids there. So it was just a really well done event all around. And grateful for the hard work the staff put into that.
And you got to give a speech, right?
Oh yeah, it was really long. Yeah, it was a stem winder. I think I talked for like 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
It was good. It was great. Josh made some great remarks. Councilman Chapman made some great remarks. Yeah, it was great.
To learn how to scream over the kids.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you for representing that board.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? All right, we will move into our regular business. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes, our June meeting and then the meeting we had on Zoom to prepare for the joint work session. Are there any amendments, changes to the minutes as they were presented? If not, we can vote on them as a block. Is there a motion? So moved by Jesse. Is there a second?
Second.
Good start. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Review of financials. Josh and Ed.
I welcome Edward to join us at the table if you want. There's a chair there. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Welcome, Arish.
Yes,
Thanks, Dave. Sorry, I was running late today. And sorry, I can't be in person to join you guys.
All right, there are financials in your packet for the end of FY '25. Financials for FY '26 are not yet available just due to the timing of the fiscal close on the month so far. But summary of FY '25 year end, we finished the year with essentially a balanced budget. It was the second year in a row that we finished with a balanced budget after more than 6 years of deficits. So that continues our turnaround from FY '24 into FY '25. Overall, there was a surplus of 873,000. That's within 2% of our projected costs, which is generally considered a balanced result. The main driver of that surplus was the transfer of medical costs related to our self-funded insurance plan. So this is something, Dash has 2 medical insurance plans. We have a traditional plan where you have your traditional premiums, and then a self-funded plan where essentially you balance a premium equivalent and then you pay out claims. Traditionally, that is something that the premium equivalent was transferred to us by the City of Alexandria. Because the City of Alexandria pays our claims directly. We discovered very kind of late in the fiscal year that transfer wasn't happening. So that looked like our surplus was bigger than it is. And so essentially we held that in reserve rather than treating that as available funding, available money to spend with the recognition that could get transferred to us at year end. Actually met this morning with Laura, and we're going to work to reconcile that. At the end, that will still result in a balanced budget just based on what we anticipate the overall costs of those to be. But if you're wondering why there were a couple $100,000 of surplus, that's the biggest driver. And we felt it was very prudent to hold on to that once we realized what was driving that because of the possibility of it getting transferred. But overall, the fact that it is a balanced result for the second year in a row just kind of reinforces some of the changes that we've done as far as the operations supervisor kind of restructuring of how that department was set up, as well as some of the cost controls that we put in place and kind of revised our purchasing procedures. Overall, just to give you an idea of kind of where things netted out. So expenditures were about 914K below budget, again, primarily because of those untransferred costs from the city related to the self-funded insurance plan. Our revenue is about 41K below target, and that is primarily due to charter revenue being a little bit lower than forecast and advertising revenue being lower than forecast. As advertising revenue being lower than forecast can be explained by two factors. One was just the timing of the new vendors starting. And once we started to receive the revenue from them, and the other was the initial underperformance from our old vendor. Now, our old vendor is, there was a contractual guaranteed minimum as part of that contract that we had with that vendor. They had a couple years of back pay on that. They started to pay that in FY25, and so that did help us kind of close some of that gap. They will actually be continuing to pay some of that in FY26, so we're still receiving some of those funds, so that will help our FY26 advertising revenue. But that's essentially where the revenue and expenditures netted out. Then this is just kind of a summary of our balance sheet. Again, the balance sheet in more detail is in the packet. Essentially, assets are just about 30 million, where liabilities are just over 2.5 million. And then lastly, just looking ahead to the current fiscal year, our current fiscal year budget is 37.3 million. The main drivers of the increase from FY25 to FY26 are the CBA wage increases. And then we also made a number of adjustments to strengthen our maintenance department to reconcile some of the issues that we saw in FY25. Some of the challenges that we'll continue to have in FY26 are just inflationary pressures, especially when it comes to parts for our buses, and then just the overall maintenance of electric buses being a financial challenge that we'll continue to manage. But overall, the budget is we have an emphasis again on cost containment, efficiency, and just overall sustainability of our the progress we've made so far, with the idea that we want to continue the progress we've seen in the last 2 fiscal years of maintaining a balanced budget. And that is it for our update on FY25 year end and kind of the preview of FY26. Open to any questions now.
I'm just gonna add in there, we did have a conversation today, so the end result, of course, will be a little bit different once we finalize this transfer, just so this group is aware. So there will be some updated figures potentially next.
Yes, yeah, we
session
could
that
give
we
a final kind of updated figure
Okay.
once that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
transfer.
everybody knew that that was going to be adjusted before the full hard close of the fiscal year.
Yeah. And I will just also add that new steps have been put in place to make sure that that cost transfer is happening during the close each month. Essentially, it was missed. Somebody at the city left who kind of managed it. Somebody in our HR team who managed it left. And it wasn't something that was part of our close process to check, because it had always previously just been something the city transferred to us automatically. And so we've initiated things on the city side to make sure that they transfer it. My accounting team here has implemented steps to make sure that it's something within our month-end close process to make sure that that's posted, and if not, to reach out to our counterparts at the city. So it shouldn't be an issue moving forward.
I was on the cost transfer topic. I just want to make sure that we understand the mechanics of this, because it's not intuitive. When you say the cost was not transferred from the city to Dash, that sounds like Dash pays the city for something monthly, but it's the city's responsibility to draw that. Is that the right sort of lay understanding?
That's a simplified sort of yes. Essentially, our self-insured self-funded insurance plan. The city pays the claims for that. And that's just kind of the mechanics of how that plan needs to get paid. It is easier for the city to pay it directly than for us to pay it through accounts payable. To budget a self-funded insurance plan, you essentially find a premium equivalent. You process that each month, and at the end of the year, you reconcile where claims above this or below this, and that kind of cleans it out. That premium equivalent, because the city pays the claims, is something the city then transfers to our books from that holding account, more or less.
Got it. And so the direction of the delta is like, we weren't paying them, but it was the city's responsibility to try. Is that- Okay. got it.
yeah.
How many months was that not happening?
It didn't happen for the whole year.
For the whole year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we discovered it kind of late into the year that this was something that was driving that surplus.
So we're in the city's financial system too. We're just sort of on the work in there, so.
I had one question. Fuel I noticed was not listed as a challenge this year. Are you seeing more stability?
We have been seeing more stability, obviously with global events that can always become an unpredictable factor, as we saw a couple fiscal years ago. It was something that we definitely saw was more stable in the past fiscal year. Has not been as much of a challenge as it was in, I think FY 22 was our big year for that.
Obviously, we don't have the FY 26 budget side by side, and so we may have already discussed this, but remind me, the really big variance in maintenance services, was that from that period where we were having to hire contract maintenance assistants?
So there were a couple adjustments made from FY 25 to FY 26. So you will see in FY 25, there was significant overspending in maintenance services. Some of this was, we realized that the maintenance service budget hadn't been increased as we increased service profiles, and so we needed to kind of rectify that. And so we looked at that, and some of the overrun in FY 25 was because of kind of that big ramp up we had to do to outsource the things. But the difference between FY 25's budget and FY 26's budget is to build in some of, the additional services that weren't added, additional support that was not added.
Remind me, what falls, the maintenance services category is like contract work, technical expertise that we don't have in-house?
It's outsourced repairs, it's, in-house repairs as well, it's parks, all of that kind of falls under that umbrella.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, on the revenue side, and you were discussing the change of vendors for advertising stuff. We've been making adjustments to that budget the last couple of years, is my understanding. Are you expecting in 27, we'll have to do some, we've been adjusting our expectations down on
Yes.
advertising. Do you see more of that coming, or not enough information to make a choice, thought on that yet?
On just the initial kind of thoughts on the new vendor and just understanding how our contract's set up.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna need to revise it down.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect it to go up for the next fiscal year, but I think we've now kind of right-sized where our expectations are.
Great, thank you.
We still have a little bit of money getting paid back to us
For
from
this
the vendor
fiscal
who
year.
failed, the initial contractor who failed to meet their requirements. So that's helpful.
You call out looking ahead, electric fleet maintenance as a challenge. Did that show up as a variance in one of the items in FY 25, or
So,
which item should we expect a variance in 26 for that?
so where to watch is the maintenance services line item.
Okay.
One of the things that I've asked my team to work with the maintenance team on is, my team does kind of review all the maintenance costs monthly and then touch base with the maintenance department. One of the things we're gonna start to really kind of make sure that we look at is, okay, are these costs electric buses, are these costs diesel buses, so that we can really get a full understanding of where the spending is
Okay,
on.
that's what I was gonna ask next, which is like, how do you identify that as a challenge relative to diesel? Is there some metric of the maintenance cost per bus or maintenance cost per dollar invested in the bus? How would you know that it's electric maintenance that's a challenge, not maintenance services?
Yeah, so we are working to make sure that it's something that we can identify and quantify. We do know that, it has been, I couldn't put a quantification on it. It has been a bit more expensive, but we're working this year to really kind of understand.
That's what I'm asking. How do you know that it's more expensive?
Well, it's more of
if you
a
haven't done
fiscal
that yet?
challenge we're gonna monitor.
We have to outsource a lot of that work.
That's one of the
In
biggest
fact,
parts of that.
The majority of that work we have to pay someone to do.
Okay.
And we have half, if not almost 3/4 of the electric fleet is out of service. And we're just having to hire companies to come in and get them running. And they're huge bills.
So far this fiscal year, one of the biggest challenges or one of the biggest cost drivers in maintenance so far, even without the actuals in front of us, has been getting those buses back to, that has been one of our biggest cost drivers so far this fiscal year.
I think also we're looking to speak a little bit to that, Praveen, and we're looking in the future months. I think Stephanie is going to come back with some updates to us to understand a little bit about the fleet itself and sort of where the challenges are. And one of the questions you had posed, and I think in the joint work session, which is, talk about costs, right? And understanding not only acquisition costs, but ongoing maintenance costs and showing sort of the experience there. That's important. So we're definitely gonna be doing that in the coming months. I believe Arish has his hand up also. I don't know when it went up, but sorry, Arish, I wasn't paying attention.
No, I just put it up after the last comment, so thanks. Really quick question, just going back to the advertiser vendor. I was curious, or advertising vendor, is the service they're providing basically ad sales, like they're cognizant of the availability of advertising inventory on buses and dash properties, and then they go out and try to contract with potential advertisers? Is that the role that they play?
That is correct, yeah, and it's on the dash buses.
Okay, and then do you guys just happen to have a sense of, and totally fine if you need to get back to me, to have a sense of how they're compensated and what the take rate is? Is it basically like for every ad they sell, they take a percentage, or is it a fixed fee arrangement? And just curious about how that's set up.
There is a percentage. Off the top of my head, I have to double check what our contract is. I want to say it's like a 60-40 split, but I'll double check that and get back to you.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Ed. That would be interesting to hear about that stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, I've got a question, but I'm half scared that I'm mixing my wires between this and test fleet management. Did we make some changes in the 26 budget about how you're managing parts, like in-house versus externally?
So I think that might be more of a test thing.
I
Yeah,
apologize. I'm
we
trying to remember
have
if it was
kind of
here or
revised
not.
our purchasing procedures and shopping around more, but there's not like a,
Not kind of in short.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Ignore me. I'm
no worries.
too many things in the brain, so.
Great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
City managers, budget guidance. Josh, do you want to tee this up?
Sure, there's 3 items here. I don't know that the first 2 require a lot of extensive discussion as opposed to the last one, which is really the action items. So sorry, these all 3 are showing under the action item, but in your inboardable, you should be able to view 2 letters from the city manager's office. The first one, which is 4A, is the budget guidance that was issued to partner agencies, which includes us in the development of our operating budget. The details are listed there, but for those who might be watching, I think fundamentally the things to understand are the instructions to limit-based budget requests to non-discretionary increases only, always looking for efficiency, duplicative or low priority service savings. This is a reduction target, so they've come back again with a 1% reduction target for all agencies. This is particularly important to understand is that supplemental budget requests must be offset by additional reductions. So what they're calling for is they're saying, if you submit a supplemental, you must also submit a proposed reduction that pays for that supplemental, which is a new instruction. And certainly city staff, feel free to interrupt and tell me that I'm explaining that wrong. But level-based budget, again, on track, prioritize decisions through lens of equity, environmental justice, et cetera. But I think also understanding the key budget development dates. I mentioned earlier, when we're talking about rescheduling the November meeting, I think we will try to target you all with some options of a meeting earlier, especially considering that the timeline for supplementals, reductions, fee adjustments, et cetera, they do need those submitted in the beginning of November. in line with the budget process. So staff will be prepared to come back with those recommendations and base the supplemental submittals on the ATV, the ATSP, as you all have approved, and the various other factors encompassing your discussion around the item 4C, which is the letter of the city manager regarding your budget priorities. So this is really a guidance letter. It's provided for your reference in the packet and gives us some context into the environment we're going into. I will say that I attended the department head meeting, and the city manager and staff provided some updates on the budget process, understandably considering the uncertain environment. I think uncertainty is the buzzword, which it kind of feels like forever right now with everything that's going on. And so the anticipation, they are anticipating that the budget is going to be really tight, if not almost no revenue to work with. So those are going to be major factors for us as we move into the development of our budget. We certainly will incorporate all of the expenses that go up automatically. Those are not subject to supplemental requests. But outside of that, we will outline those as supplementals for you all to review and discuss at the next meeting. The second item, which is 4B, this is actually directed to you all as a board. And this is, again, an outline of the key highlights of the FY 2026 general fund operating budget. It talks about the challenges in the coming fiscal year and the priorities the city is maintaining in the budget process, and asks you all as a group to go ahead and submit a letter of your budget priorities, which we have drafted, again, emphasize draft. I think there's ample opportunity for you all to have a discussion around this today. And the deadline is November 3rd. So to speak to that, Mr. Chair, you and I had a conversation earlier asking about the date. I'm sorry I didn't pick that up, but there it is. So we do have the opportunity to incorporate any edits, revisions, capture what you all discuss, update the letter, circulate it, get your thumbs up, and then approve that to go to the city as your priority. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to you. There, again, in the packet, there is a draft letter, and I know you and I have spoken, and you've given great thought to this. So I want to let you share that and discuss with the board how you'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Josh. I did want to note for those who looked at the packet earlier, I did revise the letter slightly, and actually the only section I revised was the final under after CIP priorities, the last paragraph about kudos for the city, for the Alexandria bus stop dashboard, because we always mention the need for accessibility and amenities improvements. And so I really wanted to thank Tess, now that I knew about that after reading your report, that's in there, and that we're seeing a lot of progress in that area. So that paragraph was refined. I had started to look at under operating priorities, because you can see that's a very, very long list, and some of them, most of them are things that appear year to year. Obviously, funding our base budget and incorporating any changes in compensation. We're going to be undergoing collective bargaining this year, so that's going to be a variable in our budget. Number two are the remaining, and we're down to 2. We had 5 unfunded service improvements when the new Dash network was implemented. We're down to 2 that remain. So those are, and actually one was partially funded. The 32 is it's sort of like 1.5 that remain to be funded. And so that's number 2, are calling out those 2 segments that remain. Number 3, I had, Josh had shared with me a letter, a kind of a prior version before the boardable packet was prepared, and which didn't include then the future service segments. And so when we did the new Dash network, we sort of segmented, we had a constrained version, which was sort of FY22, and we're still trying to get all of those funded. But then we had the unconstrained, which I think was originally FY28, with some of it in FY27. So I said, oh, well, we have to kind of call that out. that's a lot of extra service if you've looked at the chart that goes along with this letter. And actually in talking with Ray, we can't even do all of it because the amount of expansion buses that are required are not things that we have in our budget. So it's not even just the operating costs of that. So we have kind of a summary of what those segments are and the needs for that, and a little bit of you know, context as to why. But I want to, what I'm thinking about with this letter, because especially as Josh kind of keyed up this conversation with, this is a very constrained budget year, that if we put the stuff for FY27, those service improvements in this letter, I feel like we're going to lose attention, which should be on the two original segments, the 32 and 31 that remain unfunded. So I kind of want to see if we can remove number 3 entirely, or just include that chart as an addendum to say that there are additional service segments that were, you know, scheduled to be implemented this year based on the new Dash network. There's broad community support for it, but we want to hold off doing that until we've funded our top priorities, which are these original segments, just so he has that as information, because we're going to have to start lobbying for those, and members of our community who participated in creating that plan may start to say, hey, we were supposed to get this on line 34, on line 103, 104, and you know, when are those coming? And so, but it's really up to the board to decide, you know, do we need to reorder some of that? Does some of that other future service make sense now to advocate for, given the way our transportation network and the needs of the community look like? But that's kind of where I think we should have some discussion. I didn't touch the CIP priorities at all, which I think are you know, the priorities that we ask for every year. But you know, think about kind of what would be most impactful to tell the city manager now and how we tell our story. And then, as Josh said, we have some time to revise the letter based on the guidance we get tonight and then circulate for final approval. Do you want to start off?
Yeah, happy to do it. So I agree very much with a lot of your comments. I thought the letter is in really good shape. I see the point you're making about number 3. I'm gonna argue the case of like leaving 3 largely in as the way it is. I think you're right that there's a risk that it does distract from the top things we want. But I actually think it is useful to see that level of detail of the other stuff that we're dealing with. And I think especially because it really goes into more detail on the line 34 extension, which was like a specific conversation that we had with a member of council that he really, you know, expressed why it was important. And so to me, I almost see 3 as kind of like a show your work kind of thing, as much as like a specific level of detail. I agree with you that maybe there is like some slimming down that can kind of, you know, bring it more in line with the weight of the other ones. But I don't hate the fact that we're kind of showing the level of kind of things, you know, important things are going to have to be tackled. I mean, we're burying the lead a little bit, which is we're not saying that, you know, that next enhancement, it's the one that's over $2 million, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's the big expensive one. But I think you're raising some really good points about that. But overall, I like the letter. I think it's in good shape. I like what we're highlighting here. Kristen.
I have similar thoughts. I think in paragraph 3, particularly for the line 34 extension, I think it's really important to include some detail in it, not just for showing our work, but you know, when we look at the priorities spreadsheet, you know, absent sort of having some of the background context, if somebody were to look at this, if we don't mention that we have specifically looked and we still very much want that line 34 extension, you know, I think the average person could be like, why have you stopped talking about this particular line that is cost less than some of the other ones, serves a much higher, you know, diverse population and a higher sort of lower income, much more lower income population of the city that's underserved right now. So I think it's important to keep it there beyond just to show our city council, but to show our commitment to the community that we still want it, even if we aren't going to get it this year.
Yeah.
Just one comment on the line 34 extension, because I agree that it's a much needed service. I will say that there's several capital projects happening in that area, and the timing is around 27, 28, 29. So that's something you might want to consider, because when we're looking at, there's the Commonwealth is going to be under construction for a while. There's portions of Reed that are gonna be shut down. Right now, we're starting to do work on the bridge, the West Glebe, Mount Vernon Ave Bridge to Glebe Road in Arlington. It's gonna be one lane, so that's gonna be over a year of construction, and then we have a couple other projects in that area. So I think it could be important to leave it, knowing, as long as everybody's aware that it might not make sense to even implement something like this for a few years out until that construction is done, because I don't know if you'd even be able to operate on that route, the route that's been planned.
Should we, because then we have the chart that goes along with this. I was gonna suggest that we, I mean, there are different shades, the FY 22 and the FY kind of 27, but I was wondering if we should have two different charts, just put those on different pages, so that way they don't get kind of confounded with each other. But should we, for the line 34, note that, you know, we would not, you know, we would postpone this, say, to FY 29, you were suggesting, based upon when construction is finished on streets that route would
I
cover?
mean, I don't wanna give a date. I think things are still being planned, but I would just anticipate a lot of construction in that area with potential, I know there's work that needs to be done at Commonwealth and Reed, and so there's gonna be major detours, and there's just a lot of projects happening, so factoring that in, I think it could be vague in the timelines, potentially.
Just like an asterisk saying that, you know, timing should consider ongoing.
Okay, maybe we just put that as a note that, you know, construction may impact when this route could be in operation.
If those projects were happening on an existing route, we would just detour it, right, not suspend it. So I would recommend sort of not throwing that reason for hesitancy into the mix. If operationally we can find an accommodation.
Wasn't there one very specific, when you're coming out of the Potomac Yard Shopping Center, there's, you can't make a left?
No, that project's not funded anymore to make those improvements.
Okay, does our planning for that route take that into consideration? Because I thought that had to be accomplished in order to serve that.
Would have to be accomplished.
Hmm.
It would have to be accomplished if
Okay.
the buses were going to go through at that intersection.
So addition to the construction, we also have a project that the city has to find other funds for in order to.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would just note too, that, you know, when we think about the West End Transitway coming online in a couple of years, you know, if Dash is gonna be operating a large portion of that, and if we want to meet the goals of the Transitway, there's going to be increased service there. We have some money that we have secured through, kind of pre-planning through CMAQ funding. But it's not gonna fund, that would not fund all of the additional service that we would need over time. So I think if we're mentioning planning, that's something we wanna think and take into consideration as we're prioritizing routes. Because the West End Transitway has been a major priority of the city. We're investing a lot in capital infrastructure to make that a viable route. And so we need to think about where that falls in the priority list of kind of adding new service, increasing service, and how we're going to fund the gap that we don't have from operating dollars right now.
And is it safe to say that Dash is going to be the operator of that service?
I think WMATA would also be running buses on that route, so similar to Duke Street. It's not going to be like Metroway where you have one bus that is branded and runs on that corridor. Whichever buses are running on that corridor would be utilizing those stops. But I do think that when you're looking at increases in service to get to the headways you want, that would come more on the Dash side, not the WMATA side.
Okay, gotcha.
Just for an order of magnitude of that, and I know it's an older estimate, but that's similar in price to the priority item number 3 on that list, right? That's 2.6 million. I think it was in the high twos is what it was gonna be to run that transitway, right? It's what we've been carrying it's probably higher than that, but I just, it's understanding that impact that's coming up would probably dwarfs anything cost-wise on our prioritized list of that.
That's what my concern was when the city manager would see this list. He would just be like, I can't work with this, and that we wouldn't get what I consider the highest priority, especially when we mentioned line 32 as being our highest priority, that, we want to spotlight that, which is why I was wondering if we should move them, but I do hear and respect the opinions of my colleagues about leaving those in. One thing is, you look at the list, and I had asked staff, we hadn't done any prioritization of everything past 2, because these are all new, and so staff said, well, we just had to assign random numbers. So I'm wondering if, especially if we're separating these, that we either we just list them in maybe numerical order by route, or I think the board needs to give some thought to where we want to say this is our most important. I'm hearing a lot about line 34, although there are some constraints to being able to do that next fiscal year. Although I think when we had done our transit strategic plan, we had said that this was feasible in FY20, but I think that was more from a dash operations standpoint.
So is it possible though, because I think some of the operating priorities are really important to note, right? Like funding current service levels is important. And remaining fare free is important. And in our operating environment with uncertainty, I mean, I might suggest that you have these are your priorities, and here are things that Dash these are these things that are still important to Dash, and we want to continue planning for and looking into for the future, but kind of separating them out from the key things that are the priorities for Dash, which is maintaining our current service levels and staying fare free.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, is sort of considering some ranking within the priorities, because I think it's not necessarily clear, in all the priorities, which are sort of the most drop dead high priorities in a tight environment.
So you're saying 1 as your top priority, fund current service levels, 4 fare free would be second, and then
And have a whole new category, right? Like I don't know that I would prioritize the unfunded
Right, sort of like
enhancements in service right
roadmap,
now.
roadmap priorities.
Right,
or-
these are our priorities, and here are things that we want, like, that are also important to Dash, but understanding the constrained environment that we're in. To continue planning, continue seeking grant funding, continue to look and figure out how in the future we might implement these additional increases in service.
I think that communicates from the board an understanding of the environment while still communicating the priorities that you want to kind of keep in the vision.
Is there a point at which we think we don't need to call out the defense of fare free as a priority? Like, how long do you think we do that before we don't have to name it here?
I don't think we're there yet.
I
don't think we're there yet. Community wise,
But
and
there's
maybe
some
for the
number.
council, but
There's some number of budgets after which
hopefully.
we won't, right?
Good
And so
generation.
Bree, my honest take is I don't think we actually can ever stop. I think it's the sort of thing where the second you stop reminding people that there is a meaningful cost to unwinding, like,
Yeah.
I think it will perpetually be the thing that people are like, well, we can just charge for the buses again, it'll solve all our problems. And like, I think constantly presenting the narrative of why that's not an option
Yeah.
is always gonna be part of our messaging, reminding people, because all it takes is one cycle of people that are either newly elected city council members or, I mean, great example, that's what's happening with the discussion around the pump station, right? Like when the waterfront plan was passed, everyone was like, we need this is important. 10 years passed and now everyone's like, why do we have this? We don't like how it looks, right? So I do actually think like it's important for something that is as core to Dash's identity as free fare, that we do always remind people of why we're making this investment and that it is an investment, right?
But I agree with all that, I'm just trying to see both sides. What do you think is the risk in continuing to say it?
It presents as something cuttable.
Okay, that's what,
That's fair.
yeah, cause my first take was it doesn't hurt to keep saying it, but you're trying to think how to defend it from the other side. I'm just curious. Your thought is by pointing it out, it makes it a talking point. Let's see.
I don't think that would happen under this council, but
Yeah.
But I do think that also goes back to like, not just the benefit and the investment portion of it, but the costs of undoing it are frankly prohibited, like it's more expensive to stop collecting it. So I think that would, in my mind, tip in favor of continuing to at least talk about remind them of the capital costs of returning to fare collection.
And maybe it's not a priority, maybe our priority is continuing services, but you kind of take number 4 and zhuzh it up a little bit, and it's where you're saying, thank you for the dashboards and investments in accessibility. You're also saying, thank you for continuing fare free, in recognition that to undo this system would actually cost more than we would get in revenue, and kind of change it around and take it out of the priorities, but leave it in the letter somewhere that, so it's acknowledged.
So we would leave on operating priorities, we would leave 1 as is, 4 we would move to the last paragraph, and then 2 and 3 would sort of become, these are things that Dash is planning for and would like additional investment to pursue. On the chart itself, how, as you're looking at, and as there are these prioritization numbers that were just are placeholders, do you want to eliminate those for the individual segments, for the FY27 improvements? Do you think that there's value in trying to come up with some? I also heard discussion about adding West End Transitway investments potentially to this chart. How do you want that presented?
One suggestion I'll make is that rather, if this board wants to have a discussion about what we think the priorities could be, I'm very supportive of that. I do think one neutral way to support it would just be to sort them by the far right column, which is the efficiency number, right? I think it's the cost per rider served, just because I do think trying to put myself in the role of city council who's trying to be the best and highest steward of city funds, like that seems to me like a very defensible way to present this stuff, right? Like it's sort of putting them in order in the bang for your buck order.
I think that makes sense. I think I was initially thinking removing, the fiscal year 27 like prioritization numbers. And I did think that putting them in line order might make sense, but that might be a little confusing because then we have the top 2 that are not in order. They're prioritized 1, 2, and not in order of the line number. So, perhaps either acknowledging that that second tier is by line number and not in any particular order other than that, or coming up with, Jesse's approach of per rider investment cost.
Just move that last column to the front.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Would you still break them into the 2 sections based on year, or would you put them would you just use cost per rider as how you sort all of them?
I mean,
I'll make the case, I think, for keeping them segregated by year is it does at least go, that tracks back to the strategic plan, right? Which people put a lot of effort into and sort of, the improvements were sequenced within that plan in a way that was grounded in some sort of methodology. So I think it is important to still kind of recognize that like, we didn't get to these 2 things and here's the next wave of things that we're trying to get to.
I'm not sure about using the cost efficiency column as what we would sort by. I think it's, we could choose ridership, right? There are different goals. I think, personally, I see the first 3 that are listed as kind of like a higher tier of priority than the bottom 2. And so I think that's another option is we can just separate them into priority tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and then have them be by, I don't know, by line number, by cost, by ridership, but whatever metric within them. And my rationale for the priority tiering is the 30 and 32 get us to 15-minute service on a route. And I think that's a sweet spot of frequency to begin inducing ridership. So I would prioritize those over the 20-minute headways on 103 and 104.
Could I ask just a question on the 103, 104, and this may be to Ray. the 41,000 estimated additional riders, was that projection made prior to sort of the situation where the vast majority of federal employees are commuting into the office? Was that kind of made in this assumptions about a hybrid environment?
I believe those estimates were made in probably still in the era of hybrid work environment. This was adopted as part of the ATSB FY26 addendum to ATSB.
You guys would start working in the fall of 24 on, probably on that, or developing those. Okay, because I wonder, just without having public input on sort of the prioritization, I'm a little nervous about sort of saying, because I think for a lot of our riders, they may be saying, hey, 103, 104 is very important. And we were tracking that for at least through the spring of the ridership recovery there. And I'm not sure, I mean, this month, October is not gonna be a great gauge of that, but I'm not sure. I think we would need to do a little more refinement for me to say that those are our bottom priorities.
That's fine.
Ask the question, is it possible that it would be helpful for this to be submitted along with this letter to highlight the things that need to be done, but not necessarily in a particular priority? And then for that prioritization to occur during potentially one, the ATSP that's updated annually, but also the supplementals submittal process, because what we heard from council during the joint work session was that they wanted you to continue the process, even though understanding it's very unlikely they can fund them. That seems like the place where a lot of people are looking at it. I'm not sure how visible this submission is relative to the public because this is largely just the letter. I mean, it's visible from us. Just offering that as a component of consideration if you feel like it's too early or you don't have enough time or the right amount of space to have a conversation around the prioritization of them.
I'm fine with that. I think the ATSP has a built-in public outreach process, and I think we'll get some good feedback about how we should go forward. Because a lot of these are brand new to the community, everything below number 2. It's not something we've talked about.
So I've got a question. I'm not sure if it impacts this letter or it's for next month's discussion, but I'll put it here in case it percolates any ideas. The guidance is a 1% reduction in your budget. I think our experience in past years has been that's pretty hard to accomplish through just efficiencies, right? That especially here when so much of our budget's tied up in labor, that really the only way to accomplish that is sometimes with reductions that are bigger than that target, right? So like you chunk off a service or you scale back a service, and that's a bigger cut than you're asked to give. Or you avoid things like that because you only want to stick to that 1%. My point of saying all this is we've been talking a lot about these things that we would prioritize adding, and this year you have to fund supplementals. I'm trying to put that in the conversation that you might end up in a spot where the reductions that you propose don't neatly fit in that 1%. It might give you option to kind of swap out these pieces. I'm not articulating this particularly well, I apologize, but my point of saying that is I don't know if that would impact how we talk about some of these ads in the letter, or if that matters, because it's just a letter saying our priorities. Then we have another crack at this with the budget that Josh puts forward to the city manager. But I just wanted to kind of put that in the conversation that I'm sure Edward's got all kinds of levers to pull, but I'm not expecting him to come back and say, we figured out how to reorder the chairs and get the 1%. It's probably going to be something less pleasant than that. But is there an opportunity in there for some of these expansions to pay for that? So, just something to think about if that would impact how you put the letter together.
It'd be hard to do until we have that budget discussion.
Sure, I just was trying to not paint ourselves in any corners. But again, it's just a priorities letter. It's good information, but also, like you're saying, until we have numbers, it's hard to make actual decisions.
I mean, ours is more, well, any board and commission, it's going to be a public record, but I do feel there are people who do follow our board meetings. And so to know that we're advocating for the things that we've said we're going to do, I think helps us to build credibility, even if we then are told, hey, you're gonna have to walk away from some of this because the numbers of what the city needs us to come up with in a reduction. So I think we've got some guidance for staff. Did we decide how to present the chart just in terms of the ordering? There were we were looking at line number, we were looking at cost per rider, we were looking at ridership gains. I mean, we could just, and I think this was suggested as well, we could just list them line order and say specifically, these are not, the FY20s are not in priority order. That will be determined in the upcoming revisions to the Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan. And
That works for me. Remove that column.
Jay,
No, I would agree with that, removing that priority order column for right now, just by the sections FY26 and FY27. I mean, we can go into detail. I think Josh mentioned it too, like during like cuts, potential cuts and supplementals that we have to do later for the budget.
I think, do you have what you need to?
We do.
Okay, we need a motion to authorize sending the letter.
So I think that the action you should take would be a motion to approve you to sign a final letter that incorporates the elements discussed, so long as you deem that suitable, or if the board wants to review it again, circulate it, but you need the authority.
Yeah,
from the
and I
board to
think we
sign.
should, since we have till November 5th, I think we should circulate, give folks a few days if there's anything that we didn't capture to be able to speak up to that. Is there a motion then to authorize the chair to sign a letter subject to final circulation among the board? First and second, we'll give you a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes unanimously, thank you. Get back to the agenda here. Oh, Josh has it up. So we have a few other items to discuss in general manager's report.
Sure, and I will endeavor to be brief. First of all, I've included in your packet a look ahead calendar for the coming year. I will note that there are still some items that we are adding and tweaking in here, and we will certainly bring that back to you. But the intent of this is for you to kind of get a sense of what months you're tackling what and how you're trying to navigate due dates and so forth. So it also includes the budget due dates and so forth. I will highlight that there are some this month. We have, for our rodeo fans, we have our monster truck themed rodeo. I don't know if there's stickers, but by the way, there are, you finally all can have a shirt and a jacket. So the team has finally gotten these and they've put them out nicely in size orders for you to grab on your way out. And those online, please make sure you let Beth know what size you would like and we'll put one aside for you. But anyway, it's going to be on October 19th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. All are invited. We would love to have as many folks there as possible. It is our largest turnout of contestants in my time here at Dash, so that's really exciting. I think our rodeo guru, Brian Roby, who usually is listening online, I don't know if he's on here, is a little nervous about getting everybody through, but we'll get it done. We also have noted that when the Virginia State Bus Rodeo occurs, and also mentioning that in April, although the date fell off here, is that we're going to host the Virginia State Paratransit Rodeo and 35 Bus Rodeo, which is a smaller sort of version, but CTAV, the Community Transportation Association of Virginia, asked if they could bring it here, even though we don't have paratransit vehicles, they'll supply them. So just some good visibility for Alexandria. Next is the ridership report, just pointing out that so far the numbers for the beginning of this fiscal year continue to look great. Despite Justin Wilson no longer riding and running up our numbers. We broke 500,000 in both July and August, which are generally down months. So that's really good to see. Our ridership strength continues. We will have yet to see what the effects of the shutdown and other things have on us, but positive numbers there. Last item I want to just recap, as mentioned previously in the chair's welcoming remarks. Very proud of the way the team showed up to participate in the ACPS project. I would concur with all the remarks and thank you all for your supporting remarks, and also thank you all for just generally your support throughout the process. It is unfortunate, in my opinion, that Dash was used in some ways to derail what is otherwise a really good project, and I don't think that we were any of the reasons. But you know, things like that happen. We understand that occurs in public process. But as I've said to the city manager, we'll continue to be present for ways that we can be a meaningful resource for additional purposes in the city. We know students love riding Dash. In fact, I was over at the ACP at the Minnie Howard campus this morning, spoke to a class. We asked them how many of them rode Dash, and I think all but one raised their hand. So that was really great. It was a social studies class, learning about our agency. But you know, moving forward at this point, the project is pretty much, I would say, on hold. But I do want to share with you all that the work that we put into this is not going to go to waste. I've asked the team to continue refining what might be classified as a white paper or a reference manual of some sort that talks in depth about the lessons learned, the things that we worked on, the ideas we came up with, and potentially builds a framework for this conversation to be resumed in the future, or for other communities that might be talking about it to learn a little bit about it from our experience. And that will be an extensive document, but we put a lot of work into that, trying to help respond and collect all the questions and the things that came up. And we had originally intended to present it, but not the best place to do it, that meeting. So we're going to refine it. It's going to be a Dash document, and it's going to be a Dash publication that represents our work and our perspectives on the project. So anyway, that's kind of where that lands. And those are my major notes. I will offer if there are any questions about anything that I didn't cover. I know this is our first time sort of officially together since the summer. I will just say it was a very busy summer for all of us. The fall has been incredibly busy. We're working hard at Dash to capture not only lessons learned from that project, but to work through the budget process, but also we're going to come back in the coming months with a synopsis of the things we took away from your joint work session, which we felt was very helpful for us as staff. And so we want to put that back together, package it up to understand prioritization, steps, processes, things that you all want to see us working on from a work plan, and we will come back to you. It was not appropriate to do it this month, one, because of time, also the ACPS project, but just we want to make sure it's done the right way. So that will be coming back to you. Yeah, I think that's.
I just have one other quick item before we make a motion to move into executive session. Next month, I'd like to set up a committee to recruit to replace our colleague Steve Kleist, who left the board in June. Steve occupied the one citizen board member, citizen rider seat that was reserved for we call it transportation expert. It's written very broadly in our bylaws as to what that is, but the goal would be to submit a name to City Council at the stockholders meeting. I think the recent change we made to the timing of the stockholders, it can now be held anytime between January and March. So we don't want to have a candidate too early who then waits 3 months to go through final appointment, but we also don't want to then find out, oh, we want to have it in February instead of having it in March, and we're not ready to present that candidate along with the slate of board members. But I think starting in November will give us enough time to work on that. And of course, our staff has had a lot of experience in terms of doing board recruitments in the last few years. This one will be a little unique because the committee will have to identify, well, how do we want to explain what a transportation expert is, and kind of, you know, who we can consider for that position. So think about, Matt had a question.
Yeah, how will it be advertised?
I think through all the avenues that we've used, the city has helped us also at the board and commissions, advertisements, but we use our own social media and other distribution channels. When I joined the board, believe it or not, the public notice was a legal notice in the Alexandria Gazette. So we've come a long way. We've come a long way since then. But think about whether you want to serve on that committee. Having it as a 2-person committee helps in terms of just being able to schedule meetings more rapidly because we don't have to do public notice. But would love to have your input in that. we've got one. Does anyone else want to be the second on the committee? I'm wondering if maybe our transportation city staff member might want to, I don't want to volunteer, but I should have. She dropped something. But is anyone, we can form the committee now, and actually that can help with the staff to do the preliminary. So we've got Matt, does anyone? Jesse will be the second, great.
And Beth will be your main staff support on that. She's well equipped with all of the past materials.
So I think probably the first step would be to just come up with a proposed timeline for the committee, and then they can have their first meeting and then start working on the position announcement on the community. So great, I'm very excited to see who we get for new colleagues. We have a motion now to, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'd actually meant to ask you about that, but I thought we were going to talk about November, so I thought I had time before I said. So we do have an executive session plan. The motion that needs to be read is on the screen. Please.
I, Matt Harris, move the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing legal matters pursuant to section 2.2-3711, A4, A6, and A7 of the Code of Virginia.
All right, has been moved. Is there a second? Second, Jesse, all in favor? Aye. All right, we will move into executive session.
Just give me 2 or 3 minutes to.
Thank you.
Set the system and.
Yeah.
I'll pick a brain.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
It's okay. Good.
Like a put charters of you.
I don't think I'm allowed to get back.
I was like an opportunity to
Right.
invest in the Westchester soccer team, USL. Closed up. I registered 3 web names. Tyson Corner.
Impressed by anybody who didn't finish the traffic counting.
They were good.
Yeah, oh, okay, so.
For,
Well, you're
you know, USL.
I'm
But they have the promotion. That's what I would-
USL added that, I saw that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
No, I'm just saying, yeah. I wanted to explore.
It is super cool that USL voted in, so USL Championship, USL League 1, USL League 2 now have pro-round people off the ground. They are very obviously setting themselves up to merge with the MLS. Yeah.
Although MLS probably would.
I don't think so. I don't
Their
think,
investments are too.
I don't think the American sports ownership mentality can handle the notion of,
That's
you
right.
know, yeah. Right,
Without this,
exactly.
are hard to give up willingly.
Right, yeah. You have to take us out.
I'm Matt Harris, move to reconvene the public meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Jesse, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm Matt Harris, move to certify that pursuant to section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the executive session was convened and that are lawfully exempted by the Freedom of Information Act from the Act's open meeting requirements were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
Is there a second? Second, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're working on rescheduling our November meeting.
We will pull you all. Beth is already working on it because I already got a message.
And we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move Jesse, second, Kirsten, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We get to shop this merch store over here, huh?
Yes, please pick
Bye,
up your.
everyone.
Ajayesha, Arish, make sure you let Beth know what size shirt you want.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, she'll grab you one.
First,
Sure, if there's larges, that'd be great. Thanks, Matt.
Large.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I just want to take one thing.
I'm
You can
grabbing.
I mean,
I'm grabbing a reach.
Yeah. All right, see you, Rich.
Hey, Matt, if your judgment, if you think I can fit into a medium, then go for it. But I doubt it.
Extra large, but I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks,
Take
Nick.
care.
See ya.